Hi everyone, my name is Kendrick and welcome to Travel and Live Free. In this video, we're going to cover my country number 37 to visit every single country in the world, and that country is Venezuela. My time in Venezuela is one of the most adventurous experience I've ever had since starting to travel around the world. In this video specifically, we're going to cover my adventures in Mount Roraima, which is the highest table mountain or tipui in the country of Venezuela. And we're also going to cover the road trip going from Santa Elena in Venezuela, which is bordering Brazil, all the way to a city called Ciudad Bolivar. From there, I took a small plane that only fits 6 people that flew from Ciudad Bolivar all the way to Kanaima National Park, where I got a chance to go on an awesome adventure, taking a canoe ride all the way to the base of Angel Falls and doing a 1-hour hike to see Angel Falls, which is the world's highest waterfalls. And after Angel Falls, the next part of the trip is to explore the Kanaima Lagoon, which is again located in the Kanaima National Park. Afterwards, I will be flying back to Ciudad Bolivar and making my way back to Santa Elena to wrap up my trip in Venezuela. I can't tell you how nerve-wracking it was for me to travel in Venezuela. I was really scared, and Venezuela is one of those countries that is going through a lot of turmoil right now, and it's just not a place that's safe for tourists to go. You can still go there right now, but you do need to join a tour group if you want to stay safe. At a time, I went with a company called Kamadak, and I'm not sure if they're still running right now, but they were quite a pretty good company. So basically what I did was I crossed over from a small city bordering Venezuela called Roraima, and then from there I crossed over to Venezuela to the city of Santa Elena. I was really paranoid, but thankfully the tour company came and picked me up from the border, dropped me off at the Venezuela Immigration, and the immigration process at the Venezuela side was pretty straightforward actually. And it was actually pretty funny because the person working at the immigration was asking me what I did for a living, and I told her that I work in the fitness industry, and she started asking me how can she lose weight, and I told her don't eat a lot of carbs. I said this all in Spanish, by the way. I said no pasta, no spaghetti, and I basically told her that if she wants to lose weight, don't eat a lot of carbs, and she said I'd rather be fat. So I thought it was a pretty funny interaction with Venezuelan people. Upon entering Venezuela, I go to the office of the Kamadak tour company, and I had to wire them money from my bank account to their bank account for me to pay for the rest of my tour. And this made me a little bit scared because what if my money gets lost during transit or something? Thankfully, the money was successfully transferred over to them, and I was able to store some of my stuff in their office, which I was not going to take out of their office because when I travel to Venezuela, I don't want my stuff to get stolen. I was also pretty unprepared when I traveled to Venezuela because I didn't have any water bottle, so I ended up trekking with 1-liter Coke bottle, which I think was quite funny. Surprisingly, there was a lot of tourists that was doing the trek to Mount Roraima. Basically, I met this Russian couple, I met this Brazilian girl, I met this Venezuelan woman who is from Caracas, I met this half German, half Peruvian woman, and she brought her boyfriend with her who is from Belgium. We had a local indigenous person lead a tour for our trek to Venezuela, as well as a group of young guys who was gonna be our porters during this trek. We would be staying one night in Santa Elena, which is actually a pretty safe city, and I was able to walk around and even eat dinner at one of the restaurants there. So it's a pretty safe city to explore. The next day, the whole group took a long ride all the way to the indigenous settlement where we would be starting the trek to go to Mount Roraima. The trek to Mount Roraima is gonna last 5 nights and 6 days, and I'm gonna tell you right now, Mount Roraima is one of those treks that I've always dreamt of going to. For as long as I remember, I've been plotting of a way to get in Venezuela somehow and do the trek in Mount Roraima. There was something about this table mountain that just looked magical, and it's just something that has been in the back of my mind. So being there, present to do this hike, was such a surreal experience. I was also pretty surprised that I wasn't the slowest in the group because usually when I go on big treks, I tend to be the slower person, but on this trekking group, I ended up to be in the middle of the pack. And I attribute that because I actually did some exercise prior to going to this trek, so it's a good idea to do some exercise first to train your cardio before you do a trek in Mount Roraima. The first day of the trek wasn't too hard. Basically, we just walked across the flat plains of this region before going to camp number 1, which is right by the river. Alright, so I'm hiking Mount Roraima right now with everyone here, so you can see them in the background.
You could come also.
Yeah, there's some advertisement included in this video. But yeah, it's super nice here, and I don't know how far we are from the river, but this is day 1 of our hike. How long do we have left?
2 hours.
2 more hours? That's what you said when we were there. 2 now. Okay, so we have 2 more hours before we reach the river and start camping. It's only the first day, so anyways, we'll come back to the video when we reach the river. Alright, so we're right in front of Mount Roraima. It's right here. So everyone's here is relaxing while we're waiting for the rest of the group. There she is. Say hi. And yeah, it's super nice. I think we're getting closer, but I mean, even though it looks really close, it's still really far. So I think we have like 2 more days before we actually get to the top of this big mountain right here. Okay, so apparently we're only 15 minutes away from camp. I think some people are gonna be swimming in the river. I don't know if I will, but I'll probably take a shower because I'm really sweaty. There's actually a church here. You can't see it in the background right now, but apparently during certain times of the year, people go there for just to go here. So it's like a pilgrimage, I guess. Anyways, we'll film back when we get to the river. We basically had some nice food to eat, took a bath in the river, and then the next day we would be going to our next campsite, which is higher up in elevation, and it would be a longer trek. Okay, so it's day 2 of our hike to Mount Roraima. We just woke up about an hour or 2 ago, and it was crazy because there were so many insects. I think the locals call it the puri puri, which is this insect that comes in and sucks your blood, and yeah, you're pretty much covered in this welt. It's quite different from mosquitoes, so it's I mean, it's also itchy, which is kind of annoying. But you know what, in a way I prefer them over mosquitoes, because mosquitoes is just terrible and they carry like malaria and whatnot. So yeah, so insect infested, but sleep was alright. It was kind of crazy also with all the insects at night. So if you're planning on hiking Mount Roraima, what I'm doing right now is I'm walking towards the river, and I'll show you where you can get water and where people also take a shower at night. Well, when I say shower, I mean really take a bath in the river, so you can wash up before you go to bed. So I'm just walking down this hill right now. There's like a little pathway, and in the background, I don't know if you can see the river. I guess you can't, but we'll be there soon enough. Okay, so this river right behind me is going to be the first river crossing for day 2 of our hike to Mount Roraima. We also went for a little bit of a swim yesterday night just to wash up. And also, I'm walking around, along the path right now, and in a second I'll be able to show you where you can get water. Okay, so I'm walking along the pathway right now, and if you don't know where this is, if you ever go to Mount Roraima, don't worry, your tour group can point you out to the right direction. But as you can see, there's a water right up ahead here, and that's where you would get the water that you would drink for your hike on this trip. The second day we had to cross a bigger river, and thankfully everything went pretty well. And the hike itself, even though it was a lot longer than what we previously did, it was still manageable. So we're in Roraima right now, and there's like a random church here in the middle of nowhere. Apparently a lot of Venezuelans go here during Christmas or New Year on a pilgrimage, and this is as remote as it gets, because I don't think you can find a church in the middle of nowhere like this one right here. So we just made it to camp for day 2 of our hike. That's our campsite down there. Early in the morning, they're cooking our breakfast as we get ready for the biggest trek, well, probably the second biggest one in this next 2 days, which is up Mount Roraima. By the time we got to the 3rd day, we would now be climbing up Mount Roraima itself. We're in the jungle right now, hiking up Roraima. The landscape changed quite a bit since we started, so as you can see, it's quite a dense jungle. I'm gonna make my way around because I don't think it's too safe to make a video here, but I think it's a good idea to at least get you a glimpse of what this place looks like. How's everyone doing?
Great.
Good?
No, we are not tired. No.
Yeah, no, this is easy. No, just kidding. No.
It's an easy one. For the babies.
Yeah, for babies. And it was raining pretty hard on the day of the trek. And I would say that the trek up Mount Roraima itself is not easy, and it was quite a challenging experience. And because you're going uphill, it's gonna take more effort in your part for you to climb it. So for me, for example, it was definitely a lot more challenging for me to go uphill than the other previous 2 days when we were hiking and it was mostly flat or a steady incline. By the time we got to the top of Mount Roraima, it was like an alien planet that I've never seen before. It was so crazy. It was all black with little puddles everywhere, and the plants up there are carnivorous because there's not enough soil for them to get nutrients off the ground, so they have to eat insects. It's just so crazy. By the time we got to the top also, the hike wasn't finished yet. We have to make our way to campsite, and after a lengthy hike up to the top, we finally made it to camp and we got settled in. It was a little bit freaky because my Russian friends in this trek ended up having a tarantula right beside their tent, which is a little bit scary. And as you know, Venezuela has the biggest spiders in the world, so I don't think that would rest well for a lot of people, especially if you're scared of spiders. After reaching the top, we pretty much just settled in and we didn't do any more hiking for the rest of the day. However, the next day, it's gonna be a longer day because we would be doing a more thorough hike. Basically, the day after we slept overnight on top of Mount Roraima, we hiked up to see some of the other areas on one side of the mountain. Okay, so we are on top of Mount Roraima right now and we are hiking. We just saw this cool part, I forgot the name of it, but doesn't matter because we saw it. And we have two crazy Russians here behind us. They brought a lot of vodka with them, so that's why the hike's harder than it should be. The man in the laying down, that's Putin's cousin actually. That's his nephew.
No video, no.
We went back to camp to rest during the afternoon, and after the afternoon rest, we went back to hike to see the quartz that's all over Mount Roraima. Apparently there used to be a lot of quartz there, but some Japanese people took a helicopter up there and took all the quartz, so I don't know how true that story is, but that's apparently what happened back in the past. Now, after we finished exploring the top, that's when bad things happened. We got caught in the dark on our way back to camp, and not only that, to make things worse, one of my Russian friends actually fainted at the top and the emergency crew had to carry him back to camp. So it was a pretty scary moment, and thankfully my friend, his name's Alexander, he was okay. On the 5th day of the hike, it was now time to go down from Mount Roraima, and we were gonna go back to the first camp that we stayed at during the first day. And this was a crazy hike because it's super long. Imagine that it took us 3 days to get to the top, and in 1 day we had to get back down in what took us 3 days to get to. The hike down was super hard because it was raining super hard at Mount Roraima, and there was a stream of water gushing down at the side of the mountain. The side of the mountain was pretty much flooding while we were hiking down, and it made for a very sketchy hike down because the rocks were slippery. By the time we got down to the mountain, there were some porters there that had some food for us, and we quickly ate some food before continuing the journey to camp number 1. However, despite this long journey, we actually got stuck at the second river because of the heavy rains. It caused it to flood. Before we can just cross on foot, but this time we cannot cross on foot. Thankfully, there was some local indigenous people that had some canoes ready, and they actually paddled across to ferry us to the other side of the shore. From there, we hiked back to the first camp, and only half of us actually made it to the first camp on that day. Now, my group members was a little bit of a jerk too. They put my tent away from everyone because they said I was snoring, and I thought it was kind of like a funny jerk move on their part.
Okay, so it's our last day of our tour of Mount Roraima. Some people in our tour group actually didn't make it back here yesterday night. I think maybe they camped on the other side of the river, which is not good. Well, hopefully they make it back safe. The water level of the river yesterday was really high, and we had to take a canoe over just to cross, and I think it may have been too late at night for them to cross, and I'm just speculating, so I'll figure out later when they come back. Yeah, so today's the end of our trip. We have one more hike left, which is gonna take us another maybe 5 hours to get back to the village, and then we will head back to Santa Elena, rest for the day, and then tomorrow take the car to Ciudad Bolivar because we're gonna go see Angel Falls. Anyways, I'm inside the tent right now. I'm gonna go rest a little bit more. I barely got any sleep yesterday, and yeah, talk to you soon.
The next day, the rest of the group was reunited and we finished the last part of the trek, which wasn't too bad, and that was the end of the Mount Roraima trip.
Okay, so I'm back in the village here after hiking Mount Roraima. They're loading up the car right now, and I think we're gonna just wait for the rest of the team to arrive. More than half of us are here already, so after the rest of the people get here, I think we're gonna have a quick bite and head back to Santa Elena before we go back to do the next part of the tour. Woo!
Now, the Mount Roraima trip was amazing because I made some good friends there, especially the two Russian couples, and I'm still friends with them to this day. As a matter of fact, when I traveled to Russia later on, I got to visit them in their hometown, which was super heartwarming. After the trip was finished, we went back to Santa Elena to celebrate and had a nice dinner. After having a nice dinner the next day, we would now be splitting up because the Brazilian girl and my two Russian friends would be leaving Venezuela. They would be going back to Brazil, and me and the half Peruvian, half German woman and his Belgian boyfriend and their Venezuelan friend is gonna go deeper into Venezuela, and we're gonna go to Ciudad Bolivar, where we're gonna be taking a small plane to go to Angel Falls. It was about a 10-hour drive from Santa Elena to reach Ciudad Bolivar, and it was quite a sketchy drive too because there was a lot of corrupt police that would stop us at the road at every 50 kilometers, and they would pretty much just hold us there waiting for a chance to extort bribe. Luckily for us, we went with a tour company, and he was able to fend off all those corrupt officials. As part of the trip too, we also ate some street food at the roadside of Venezuela, and I was really paranoid eating the street food because what if someone would come out of nowhere and shoot me or something. But turns out the locals were really friendly because when I ate the street food in Venezuela, I remember ordering a chicken dish and they asked me, did you like the dish? Obviously in Spanish. And I said, yeah, I like it a lot. And they pretty much took their giant fork, jabbed in their chicken, gave me another piece, like, here, have another one. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm so full. But if I don't eat this, I'm pretty much an asshole. So I just ate it, obviously. By the time we got to Ciudad Bolivar, we stayed at a guest house, which was pretty nice actually. And it was run by a German person who has moved to Venezuela and lived there for several years now. He even had a Venezuelan wife, and he told us stories of when Venezuela used to be a well-off country to now when there's no jobs and no opportunities for everyone. After that nice dinner, the next day, we went to the airport in Ciudad Bolivar.
We're about to board the plane to go to Kanaima and Angel Falls. We just boarded the plane.
Okay.
Because the baggage is
You sit very down, please.
And we took this small plane going all the way to Kanaima National Park. Right when we arrived at Kanaima National Park, we only had enough time to drop off our stuff in our small guest houses before getting on the canoe and starting our trip right to Angel Falls right that afternoon. I would say to you right now, the journey to Angel Falls is one of the most incredible journey I've ever had in my life. I truly felt like I was Indiana Jones at this moment because we're in this dense jungle riding a small canoe in this river, and the river's pretty shallow too, so when they actually dig their ore, you can actually hear them hitting the ground on the river. Now, not all parts of the river was shallow, some parts were deep, obviously, but it was pretty crazy to go on this journey. It took us about 4 hours to reach the base camp to Angel Falls, and that ride was grueling. We were just sitting on a wooden seat, and my lower back was hurting the whole time. Now, the boat ride to Angel Falls itself, we were joined by other tourists. So we had another fellow Canadian guy from Edmonton that joined us, and we had this guy from Switzerland who actually fell in love with a Venezuelan girl, and he's been visiting her in Venezuela, and they actually ended up getting married. So that's quite a nice story. Basically, when we got to the base of Angel Falls, we took an hour to hike up to the top where Angel Falls was located. We took a lot of pictures, made a lot of videos, and it was just surreal to see the world's highest waterfalls.
Alright, so now we are on Angel Falls. You don't have to hide, man. There you go, I can see your face. Hello. Yeah. Alright, so I'm in Angel Falls. I met a fellow Canadian. He's right here. Hello. He's from Edmonton.
That's right. City champions.
Yeah, he's gonna have a kid soon because he has nothing better to do. I'm just kidding. But no, we're just having a joke where there's nothing to do in Edmonton, so people have kids early, so they have something to do. But yeah, so we took a 4.5-hour boat ride to get to Angel Falls, and I wasn't sure if it was gonna be worth it, but coming here and seeing this right behind me, totally worth it. As sketchy as Venezuela is, they have some of the best things that you can see in this planet, and if you can muster the courage to come here, I highly recommend to come and visit this falls and witness this beautiful place that you can only see in this dangerous country. We're gonna be sleeping on hammocks at the bottom of this falls later tonight, and tomorrow I think we're going to Kanaima Lagoon and check out Sapo Falls. So one more day in this area before heading back to Santa Elena. Anyways, checking out, and he can say goodbye soon. There he is.
Alright, see you later. Adios.
Bye from Angel Falls.
I can't even describe to you how beautiful it was. It's one thing to show it to you on picture or video, it's one thing to see it in person. It was the second time in my life where I felt emotionally moved when I saw something, and the first time was when I saw the pyramids of Giza, and the second time was when I saw the Angel Falls. After hiking back down from Angel Falls, this was when things went bad. Our guide was actually a big asshole. I didn't like him at all. He did a terrible customer service, and he forced us to cross the river in the dark, and I ended up hurting both my foot, and I'm still going to physiotherapy right now to help repair the damage that could have been avoided had he allowed us to go down when it was still brighter. So this guy was quite a dick, and I don't like him, and apparently he got fired since then. So usually I don't like the idea of people losing their jobs, especially in Venezuela, but I think this guy deserved it because this person clearly had no care for the well-being of tourists. That evening, we spent it actually sleeping at the base of Angel Falls. We slept on hammocks, and surprisingly there was not a lot of mosquitoes, and I think it was because of the breeze, and surprisingly they had electricity in the middle of the jungle too. Granted, the electricity was fueled by a generator, so we only had about 2 hours of electricity, just enough time to go eat dinner and take a shower before calling it a night. The following day, we took the canoe back to Canaima National Park, and this time it was a shorter ride. I think it only took 2 hours, and maybe it was because we were now going with the current as opposed to against the current. We spent the rest of the afternoon exploring the Kanaima Lagoon, which is super interesting too because we went to 3 different waterfalls, and we even did a crossing at one of the waterfalls, and it was just a fun trip. Basically, the adventure that I had in Kanaima National Park to this day is one of my favorite adventures of all time. I am even debating going back there again one day just because of how incredible it is. After our trip in the Kanaima National Park was finished, we took the plane back to Ciudad Bolivar, and from there, our whole group split up. Part of my group member would now be going to Caracas because they would be catching a plane there. Another of my group member is going to Santa Elena because he's gonna hike Mount Roraima. And as for me, I'm gonna go back to Santa Elena as well because I'm gonna cross back to Brazil. Now, the way back to Santa Elena, I was by myself and just a driver. So I slept overnight at another city nearby from Ciudad Bolivar. And it was kind of sketchy to sleep there by myself. I mean, the hotel was nice, but everyone kept staring at me, which made me feel a little bit paranoid, especially because I'm the only random Asian guy there and there's no tourists in Venezuela, so it was quite a weird experience. The next day, we took a long 10 to 12 hour journey back to Santa Elena. Again, we were pulled over by a lot of police checkpoint, and I was even telling the driver that they should be protecting people instead of harassing people. And he was agreeing. He said, yes, they're definitely messed up for trying to screw over the locals and the tourists when in fact they should be protecting them. Now, it makes sense though because the country is so poor and it's run by a corrupt president. So when you have that right now happening, it's kind of hard to travel in that country. So you just kind of have to accept that it's gonna happen. We finally made it to Santa Elena, and that's where I wrapped up my trip. I spent one more evening there before the owner of the company would drive me to the border the next day. And that's the end of my amazing adventure into Venezuela. Venezuela is easily in my top 10 most favorite country of all time. If you like adventure, Venezuela is the place that you need to visit for sure. Anyways, that's about it for this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your comments below. And don't forget to sign up to the Travel and Live Free newsletter, where you can get a 10-step cheat sheet on how to travel around the world. You'll also get the latest tips and strategies on how to save money on travel for Canadians, how to go on a around the world adventure travel for Canadians, and how to use travel to get more freedom in your life as a Canadian. You can sign up for the newsletter in the description below. Until next time, I'll see you then.